Hey girls, I'm back with another video. Girls and guys, I keep saying that. I need to stop. It's not I'm not assuming your gender or anything. I'm just, it's a habit. Any hoodle. If I seem lit right now, it's because I'm on my third cup of coffee here. My oopsie daisies. But so in this video, I want to talk about the ending to, so spoilers, if you don't want the spoilers, get out of here, girl. I want to talk about the ending to Where the Crawdads Sing. So Where the Crawdads Sing, for those of you who may not know, is a very popular book right now. New York bestseller, yada yada yada. It's on everybody's book list, etc., etc. So and it's also in production to be a movie. I can't remember if it's off of Netflix or if it's going to be a major motion picture or whatever. I don't recall those details, but I have basically been rushing to finish it or to get to it so that I can see it before or ingest it before whatever movie or whatever is going to come out, right? So here are my thoughts specifically on the ending, because if you're watching this, I'm assuming you've read the book. Okay. 1 minute synopsis. This is about a girl whose parents have abandoned her and lives in a marsh. She starts dating this guy. He dies. They accuse her of killing him. Okay, so spoiler alert, she does kill him. Anyway, so I got some notes here. Some things that I want to say. The only thing that I want to say about like the structure of the book is that in the beginning it was really hard to follow, especially if you were like, so like I feel like it's easier for you to commit certain things to memory when you're reading like a physical copy of something. So like if you were reading the physical copy of the book, it was probably easier to commit to memory. But like when you're listening to an audiobook, like I was, most of my books are audibles. When you're listening to the audiobook, it's harder to follow those things because you don't have like the physical textile whatever to commit to memory, right? So the beginning was a little hard to follow because they're talking about Chase being killed, etc., etc., and like it was hard to make the connection between the Chase that's dead and the Chase that she was talking about in the beginning of the book. Like they were just kids then, like she was like 8 years old or whatever, seeing him at the Piggly Wiggly, which was the market, right? So it was hard to make that connection. So I thought that, you eventually you get it once the pieces unfold. But in the beginning, I'm like, why are we talking about this murder guy? What does this have to do with this girl that's living in the swamp? I'm not understanding, right? Second thing that I wanted to say about this book is how interesting, here goes Jocelyn talking about race again. How interesting is it that Black people always have to come to the rescue, even in fiction? Yes, I know this is fiction, but like this girl would not have survived without jumping, right? And you're a fool if you don't think that is like based in any sort of fact. Like, why? If you know, you know. I am glad she ended up with Tate in the end and happy in the marsh. And I'm glad that she because what are the chances of someone in those circumstances, A, surviving, right, learning, and having the level of success that she obviously had with her books, right? And then, to fall in love with Tate, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what are the chances? So I'm glad that she did end up, like, with him and living her happy life in the marsh up until the day that she died, right? Right. So here's, or Tate, not Chase. Here's something that bothered me like during the trial process, right? So like in the beginning of the book, like they're saying whatever they're saying about Chase the dude she killed. And they're like, oh, he messes around with girls, he's always going out with girls, and he's always doing this, blah 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 blah. Like, they say that in the beginning of the book, they establish that in the beginning of the book, and that people around town know or whatever. And my thing is, if you suspected that and you knew that, and those are things that you knew about Chase, why was it that, like, no one suspected that he might have been sexually assaulting this girl, right? So, like, when those fishermen came around the bend or whatever, and, like, Chase is on the ground screaming or whatever because she kicked him in the nuts for trying to rape her, why wasn't your first reaction, oh yeah, that's, you know, Chase messing around with those girls, he's probably trying to whatever to the Marsh girl? Like, why wasn't that your first reaction? Why was your first reaction to be like, what has she done to Chase? And it's like, because they describe her, the way they describe her is like, she's thin, she's, you know, like she's eating foliage essentially in the woods or in the marsh. Like, she's not no, you know, girl. Like, why was your first reaction, oh, she's trying to hurt Chase? No, get out of here. Oh yeah, the other thing that I want to drive home is, I don't care what kind of regret her mama had at the end, or how she lived her life crazy or whatever it was. Absolutely not. You really abandoned your kids and just did not come back. Like, you telling me, like, if you could have afforded to flew them all out to where she was in Louisiana, you couldn't have found a way to show up with your brother, your cousin, your auntie, or whoever, and be like, no to the dad, we're taking my kids. You really just left them there. Like, you really just left them there. Especially, like, knowing your husband, you thought he was gonna stick around. Like, she really left them kids there, girl. Ridiculous. Yeah, that blew me. I don't care what. Yeah, I was glad that Jody came back, though, because she talked the most about Jody. She didn't talk about the other siblings, to the point that I was a little confused somewhere in the midst, where I was like, is Jody the only sibling? Because that was the only one she talked about, and the only departure that she talked about. Like, she talked about her mom leaving, she talked about her dad leaving, but the only sibling she talked about leaving was Jody. But obviously they all had left, right? So I am glad that Jody was the one that came back. We gonna get to this one, hold on. Oh, okay, so let's just talk about the ending now, because all these notes about the ending. So she killed him. She killed Chase. Here are my thoughts and questions, bro. Like, so she killed him, and she got away with murder, basically, for having no evidence. So she got away with it. And it's interesting because they build it up like the people of the town are being prejudiced against her because she's the Marsh girl, and they're talking down at her because she's the Marsh girl. But at the end of the day, all of those, like, prejudiced, judgmental people were right, because she killed him. She pushed him out of that little tower. She killed him. So, and then I felt like at one point they were trying to make you think that it was Tate because of the hat and the hat fibers or whatever. Yeah, she killed him, and she really got away with it. And the only evidence really was that goofy poem that she wrote. Like, the poetry thing at the end was weird. Like, I thought that was a weird thing to include, that she was this poet, and now, you know, Tate is left with the choice of revealing that she murdered Chase, or ditching all the stuff, like the necklace and like, why did you keep that? You telling me you couldn't just cut that cord and bin toss that shell? You just, like, kept it under your, wherever the frick she kept it? Like, she really got away with murder. And this is the second book that I have read where the ending, well, if I am confessing, as I was reading it, I'm not one that minds spoilers. So as I was reading it, I did Google the ending to see who killed Chase Andrews, and so I knew, like, so I knew, I was reading it and I knew eventually they were going to reveal that it was her that had killed him. But this is the second book, had I not ruined it for myself, that I have read where the ending I was like, oh, you did it. There was this book that I read called Allegedly that is really, really good. It's in my 5-star reads on the Storygraph. I'll link my Storygraph below so that you can follow me if you're a book nerd. But yeah, and this book called Allegedly, where they flipped it like this, and spoiler alert, she ended up doing the thing that I won't ruin the rest of it for you, but she ended up doing it. And I was kind of like that with this, like, she really killed him. Like, you went through the whole trial, people are sticking up for you, jumping is crying in court, you know, people are whatever, and you really killed him. And it's like I struggle with whether or not I feel like it was justified, because yeah, this was like the 50s, I think, when this was happening, 50s or 60s. So like the value of this Marsh girl's word against Chase Andrews was probably no, right? And she was looking for ways to like prevent him from trying again to rape her, but like, you killed him. Like, okay, girl. And she like, that's a gnarly death. She like pushed him off the tower. And then here's my other issue with her killing him and then them revealing it, you know, posthumous for her, like after her death, is that we didn't get any details. Like, how did you, because she had like bused to the other town, right? So how did you bust from the town back in the middle of the night to do this? How did you make, because they had like timed it out, right? How did you make it back? Well, like they hint that it was whatever tide or whatever, but we needed those details from her. We didn't need like the guesstimating from Tate at the end of her making it to the tower in a riptide to make it back to her bus. No, we needed the words from her. This is how I did it. This is how I made it back. This is how I got back to town for breakfast in the morning. This is how I pushed him off the tower. This is how I covered my tracks. Like, I feel like that was lacking and we needed that. And I get sometimes, you know, those nitty-gritty details for authors are probably difficult, and so they take the easy way out and they don't give them. But I feel like we needed it for this one. And those are all my thoughts on Where the Crawdads Sing. I will probably film a part 2 of this so that we can, whenever the movie comes out, we can talk about whether or not it's bad or good. So my guess is bad, but we'll see. I'm gonna watch it anyway and let you guys know. And then I also really have to give you a garden update for my plant followers. I have a lot of stuff happening in my garden outside, so I really want you guys to check that out too. So done talking. Bye.